What's up, Raider Nation? Welcome to TRU Raider Podcast. I am your host, TRU Raider. Now, today, what I really want to start off talking about is all this smoke that's going on around Shedeur Sanders, Deion Sanders, and I know it's like being talked to like to death. Like people are just bringing it up and bringing it up, and I just gotta go ahead and touch on the subject real quick. I'm gonna pull up some of the things that have been being shared, and this isn't all inclusive or whatever, but we got to talk about it. Now, the first thing I want to pull up is this is a screenshot. Shedeur Sanders put on his Instagram story a video of him driving by Allegiant Stadium, and it says legendary at the top, right? And I know he's playing into this whole narrative, right? Everybody believes that Shedeur Sanders wants to go to Vegas. Uh, this is a guy that likes the spotlight, and it's very, very likely that whether there's some behind the scenes things happening or not, he's going to go ahead and play into this kind of narrative, right? It's good for views, it's good for clicks, it's good for the name, the brand, all of that stuff. But on top of that, there's been smoke after smoke after smoke, right? First you have the whole thing where he was at the Las Vegas Aces game and he's talking to Mark Davis, and Mark Davis is telling him you might already be home, right? There's been a lot of talk about, Deion Sanders saying that he likes Antonio Pierce. There's the connection between Shedeur Sanders and Tom Brady. Tom Brady has been mentoring him in the offseason. They text after every single Colorado Buffaloes game. And there's just connection after connection after connection. And I know last year there was all this smoke about Jaden Daniels, and all signs pointed to Jaden Daniels going to Vegas. But the problem was is that we had pick number 13, and we flat out just had an inability to trade up to number 2 because the Commanders were not selling. The Commanders were convinced that Jaden Daniels was their guy, and so it just did not happen. Right now, as we speak, the Raiders are drafting at pick number 2. Now, mind you, I am filming this on Sunday before the Bucks game. So right now they are at pick number 2. So I also wanted to get into this next clip. Let me pull that up real quick. So this next clip was something that was recently released. And for whatever reason, I cannot find it. Great. Let me pull it up real quick, you guys, because this is important. This is a video that was posted. I pulled it off of ESPN, but it was posted by Deion Sanders Jr. was the person who filmed it, at least what I've been told. So let's go ahead and play this real quick. So, mind you, this is something that came out in February, right? This was actually filmed in February, and it speaks volumes, right? If there was all this smoke already going on in February, where Deion Sanders is telling AP draft those Sanders kids, right? He already wanted AP to draft his kids. This is in February. He wanted him to draft his kids to the Raiders. Now, you take that from February, and it just resurfaced, right? And then if you look at all the smoke leading up to Shedeur Sanders to Vegas, Shedeur Sanders to Vegas, and there's a lot going on with that, and where there's smoke, there's fire, right? And really, I honestly believe that their intention is that they're going to go out and get Shedeur Sanders. Now, I've watched a lot of tape on Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, a couple of these other quarterbacks, and really, I think the biggest thing that discourages people from Shedeur Sanders is the stuff of him showing off his watch and all that kind of stuff, right? But what it really comes down to is that when you watch the kid play, he is good. He is damn good. Is he the big comparison is he as good as these other quarterbacks in the last couple of years? Is he as good as Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, CJ Stroud, all these guys, right? And the answer is maybe not, right? But if you look at previous drafts where you have like Patrick Mahomes was drafted number 10 overall, right? And so when you have these quarterbacks that turn into superstars in the league, they're not always the absolute best prospect ever, right? It just really matters what they do when they get to the NFL level. Now, some of the other smoke is, there was like and I don't have the video right now, but there was Ice Cube and Deion Sanders were on a podcast, and there started being talk about like, well, will Deion Sanders come to the NFL to coach his son in the league? And he's like, there was seemed to be a lot of kind of smoke around it. A lot of people are talking about it making sense, but when I look at it, the first thing that it makes me think of is like, okay, Josh McDaniels and David Ziegler were connected, right? And when they decided to move on from one of them, both of them are a package deal, right? So, I'm just not really sure if that's something that needs to really happen at the NFL level, right? Because if you bring in Deion Sanders to coach Shedeur Sanders, then what happens if the Raiders decide, you know what? Shedeur Sanders he turned into a draft bust, right? And he's just not it. Then what? Then you lose your coach too? Or on the flip side of things, if they get a couple years in, they decide, well, Shedeur Sanders is great, but we really don't like Deion Sanders being our coach. Then what? Then you're moving on from Deion Sanders, but you still have his kid at quarterback. Does it turn into some weird package deal where another team says, we'll take both you and your kid, come coach for us. We'll go ahead and trade for Shedeur Sanders, or when his rookie contract's up, we're going to go ahead and pick him up. Like, what does that look like, right? And so I'm not really a fan of that package deal. But you guys, let me know what you think about this in the comments. One, do you think that the Raiders are going to draft Shedeur Sanders? And do you think that we actually should? And two, what do you think about the prospect of Deion Sanders potentially coming and coaching for the Raiders? Is this a good idea, or does this put us in a situation that we really do not need to be in? Let me know. If you're here on the live, stick around. We're going to watch the game. Like always, Nation, I love you.